Good evening. This meeting of the Select Board on March 26, 2024 is called to order at 6:00 p.m. This meeting is being held in person and/or remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is anyone else recording the meeting? Okay. Participating this evening, myself, Liz Klein, Chair, Bill Ramsey, and Joe Fisher is joining us remotely. If you're willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. I believe we have one set in front of us.
Ready to proceed?
And I as well. Next on the agenda is Plymouth County Commissioners American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA check representation. We have Commissioner Jared Vanzella with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the membership, a pleasure to be in Hingham this evening. I'm Commissioner Jared Valenzola, and I send the regrets of my colleagues, Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Hanley. They couldn't join this evening, as well as Treasurer O'Brien. He had a family matter come up. But we're happy to be here this evening to present a check to the Town of Hingham totaling $859,900 out of our ARPA program for two great projects you're working on, the Stormwater Master Plan and the Route 3A Sewer Project. Before we go into ARPA real quick, we've been going around, and it's been a while since we've been before you, to discuss the previous federal program that we had employed, which was the CARES Act. So you see in your packets, we did a comparison of our CARES Act numbers, and we just wanted to give the viewers at home, as well as you folks, an update just on how successful the Plymouth County CARES Act program was. As you may recall, in 2020, Congress appropriated about $90 million to the County of Plymouth, and there was some consternation from some communities, as well as the state, given some negative connotations to Plymouth County's capability to handle those funds. In the final analysis of the CARES Act, every community in Plymouth County, including Hingham, received 50% more dollars than like-sized communities outside of the county. Hingham received $3.7 million from the CARES Act. Compare that to the town of Westford, which received $2.1 million. Cost of administering this program, the Commonwealth's cost was unknown. The County of Plymouth did it for 0.93%, less than $1 million to administer this program. That was recognized nationally by the Federal Department of the Treasury, the U.S. Congress, and the National Association of Counties for the most effective, efficient, and cheapest cost to administer in the entire country. And when it came to compliance, one of the biggest things that was important for us was that when we gave you the check, we didn't take it back. That happened all over the Commonwealth. They were given a grant from the state, and then the state 9 or 10 months later would say, oh shoot, we shouldn't have done that. We need that money back. And a lot of communities had clawbacks. Plymouth County didn't claw anything back. The state sent millions of dollars back to the federal government. We sent nothing. We made it a commitment that every dollar will stay in the county, and every dollar possible will go to the town of Hingham and the other membership communities. If you flip over the handout, there's an example of multiple communities, every community in the county in the comparison. $45.2 million to communities like size outside of Plymouth County. We administered $87 million total to our county communities, with the remaining $3 million going to the nonprofit hospitals. So we're really proud of that program, and we wanted to just take a brief opportunity to highlight that for the viewers at home. So as I often quip, CARES Act was our firstborn, ARPA's our secondborn. So we've moved on to ARPA. CARES has grown up, moved out, and gone to college, and now we're on to ARPA. So in 2021, of course, Congress passed that, and we've been really pleased with this program. Working with Tom and Michelle and your entire leadership team here has been great. This is obviously, the CARES Act was in reaction to the pandemic, expenses that your community incurred that weren't previously budgeted for. ARPA is forward-thinking. ARPA is communities have identified where there may be some weaknesses, especially in water sewer infrastructure, which I know you're using it for. And it's allowing communities to make the investments using one-time money to take care of those one-time costs and ease the burden on the taxpayer. Right now, Plymouth County is on track. Once again, we're really proud of that 1% number. We're on track to administer this program at 1%, which again will mean more money for Hingham. The national average is 7 to 10%. So we really believe that this demonstrates the value of county government and the fact that we're able to streamline and create these programs for the member communities and do so quick, cheap, and efficient, right? They usually say you can get 2 out of 3. We like to provide 3 out of 3. Lastly, and then I'm happy to take questions, we wouldn't be able to do this without the support of our friends in the legislature. Senator Patrick O'Connor, Representative Joe Moschino have been staunch advocates for the town of Hingham for these funds. They're in contact with myself and the commissioners, my fellow commissioners, as well as the treasurer. And we're really proud of the teamwork, as well as Congressman Lynch. We're proud of the teamwork, and we're proud of the fact that we're able to work together. Our constituents are shared, right? I'm elected by the same people you are, and I think that's the value in working with the county for a lot of these programs. So that's it for the presentation. I do have a big check. I don't know if anybody has any questions. The big check was necessitated. The treasurer hates when I tell this story, but when we used to do the CARES Act, account number, fake routing number, but it's interesting, there's some Easter eggs. The account number is the date the Pilgrims landed, so 12/21/1620. The routing number is the population of Plymouth County at the time, 521,000 and some change, I forget the exact number. And then the check number is 1685. Can anybody guess the 1685? That's the year the county was formed. And then not too long after that, Hingham and Hull voted to join us. Cohasset decided to go with Norfolk. Cohasset's lost. So that's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions, thoughts, or?
Well, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations to you and your team. We've been impressed with how efficient you have been and how effective it has been, and certainly appreciate the collaboration of the entire team. So on the behalf of the town of Hingham, I definitely want to express our gratitude, certainly for the CARES money coming out of the global pandemic, as you mentioned, as well as forward-looking. We have lots of projects planned for the ARPA money, and certainly more projects on the horizon. So look forward to your continued partnership.
Absolutely.
Bill, do you have any questions or comments?
Just wanted to say, we're always happy to see you, and you can bring a small check, a big check, any check.
Any check.
We will be happy to accept it. So thank you for all you did for us, Jared. Really very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And we appreciate your work on the advisory board as well. Folks aren't aware, that's our legislative branch. You have town meeting. We have an advisory board, which is one selectman from each town and a city councilor, and we can't really operate without them, obviously. So we appreciate your years of service there as well.
Liz, do you mind if I-
Excellent. Sure, go ahead.
Another quick question for me. So we do have a reallocation application in. I hope that's being considered seriously. We look forward to hearing on that one. And then I'll note, just last question, is there a third kid on the way, or?
If Congressman Lynch or Senator Markey or Senator Warren were here, you could have asked
That's
them. We get surprises, but we enjoy that. You know, we
We have balloons
yes,
ready?
we would love one. Yeah, we got the balloons, cigars ready to go.
Exactly.
And I'm glad you mentioned the reallocation, Tom. You know, again, our goal, the charge we give to the treasurer's office and our staff is not a single dime goes back to Washington, D.C. So we recognize that some communities are bigger than others and some communities have greater needs than others. And thankfully, because we've been able to foster a collaboration and a working relationship with all of our member communities, we can rely and trust that there are some of the smaller communities that may not be able to use their full allocation. They'll turn those funds back and we'll give them to communities like Hingham and others that have, especially these shovel-ready projects that are ready to go, and that's the best use of those funds.
And here in Hingham,
Yeah.
the board gave us the exact same mantra that
Yeah.
our allocation, we're going to spend every penny of that allocation, and I think we have.
Absolutely.
So if you got more, we're ready.
We'll get.
Shovels are ready.
Yeah.
All right, that's right, exactly, that's right.
I had one other point.
Yeah, of course.
I also want to point out, Michelle ran point on the opera and the CARES money for us. So, you know, we said, as Tom just said, we said spend every dollar we have and figure a way to do it, and she did it. So thank you for all your work, Michelle, as well.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes. optimizing all of the investment, for sure. Are there questions or comments? Any members of the public? Joe, did you want to add anything?
I think you and Bill said it all. The county has proved to be exceptionally nimble, and we really appreciate their partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Do you want to take a photo with the big check?
Yeah. You can tell it's getting to be a little well-traveled as it moves
As it makes its
around.
way around the
Yeah,
county.
that's good.
Do you want to go back here or come up?
Come up here.
Yeah.
We're going to use that as a backdrop.
Great. Yeah, I like that.
This is excellent backdrop for Facebook
That
photos.
is a beautiful one. I like that.
Let you guys.
You get in the middle, yeah, you get in the middle.
Thank you, okay. Hand on the check. Everybody in? Well, yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank
thank you.
Excellent, thank
See
you
you
so
again.
much for being
Thank you.
here.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your partnership.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Michelle has the real check, so for further proof, I am not leaving with it. She's got it to deposit, and we'll be back again soon.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right, next is the Route 3A Task Force update. JR is with us, and Judy Sneath, welcome.
Hey, everyone. Shall we just go ahead?
Sure.
Great. I am Judy Sneath, and I'm the chair of the Route 3A Task Force. I'm joined tonight by J.R. Fry, our town engineer, and Tom Laughlin, our engineer from GM2, which is the design engineer working on this Route 3A project. I wanted to briefly introduce you to what we hope to cover tonight, and then let JR get into the detail. We decided to kind of breeze through these slides. There are a bunch of them, but stop us as you wish, and hopefully we'll have a little time for questions at the end. So just a brief history of the Route 3A project, what the significant roadway improvements are, some of the key landscape design decisions that we have to make now, and then our immediate priority for coordinating and permitting. So the project, if you back up once, just to orient everybody who might not be as familiar with this, this route, what we call the Route 3A Safety Improvement Project, extends a little over 1.5 miles from what we know as the Lobster Pound to Muzzy's Corner, which is where Rockland Street splits off. Way back in 2009, this is a brief history, but it's been a pretty long process. 2009, the Select Board held hearings on the safety of the rotary and had some different design considerations. Fast forward, there was a citizens group that started to really advocate for state studies, for town meeting funding, and over the next few years, 2015, 2017, 2019, town meeting allocated $800,000 for design of this project, which formerly DCI, now GM2, has kind of spearheaded for us. We submitted a 25% design to MassDOT in 2019. The pandemic and changes at Town Hall and at DCI GMT kind of slowed us down for a couple of years, and at MassDOT also, there was really a slowdown. But last year, we handed over the design cost of the project to DOT. And in January, we submitted the 75% design documents. So now we're in this period of comment from the state, from MassDOT, and we're dependent on them for the subsequent revisions that GM2 will be working on. The revised cost estimate, which about, I would say in 2019 was about $15 million, is now $30 million. So our $800,000 investment is yielding a good return, if you think about it that way. And because of that revised estimate, we have been shifted as a project to the 2026 TIP budget. We expect to break ground in spring of 2026, hopefully. So that's basically where we are. This is in this phase, coordinating within Town Hall, across town departments, across our neighboring towns, with the residents, and with the state and local government is crucial. So thank you for your time. JR is going to just walk us through the significant improvements, but any questions you have?
Absolutely.
Great.
So we're starting off up here at the intersection of Broad Cove Road and Otis Street. The first significant improvement here is that we're forcing traffic to follow the natural curvature of the road. And then if they want to enter Otis Street and go into the residential section, they'll have to make a proper right-hand turn. That particular element has been consistent through the 25% design as well. And right now, we're working with MBTA to possibly get portions of that work completed prior to the actual start of our project. They recognized it as a safety improvement as well for the improvements that they're making to the bus stop on Otis Street. You'll note here that as Broad Cove Road enters the curve and as Otis Street enters the curve, they both currently constrict to one lane in each direction. And so probably the largest design change that has occurred between the 25 and the 75% is that there were a lot of factors that went into it, but what we did some additional traffic counts, and we confirmed that the traffic capacity of a two-lane configuration is sufficient to manage traffic through this curve and up to the Ship Street intersection. And so because of that, it benefits the project in a lot of other ways, environmental permitting issues, and a little bit on cost. But the biggest one is environmental permitting issues and impacts to abutters. By doing that, we're limiting our cross-section through there. Now, the one concern that would be raised is that when you limit your cross-section, are we impeding the ability of emergency vehicles to get through? We will maintain a 30-foot paved section at a minimum through this area. So as emergency vehicles enter the corridor, and cars will be able to pull off onto the shoulder, and there will be a clear path for emergency vehicles to clear this section of the roadway. It's the same kind of traffic pattern you see when you're on 228, and we're responding out of Central Fire. So this really isn't an impediment to safe movement through the corridor. Here at the bathing beach, we'll have an upgraded signal. We will maintain a left turn lane into the bathing beach. And for pedestrians, you'll have a much shorter walk than you currently have, having to cross 4 lanes of traffic. So even with the turn lane, we're reducing it to about 3 lanes worth of cross. We're also relocating an MBTA bus stop to this location. And once we finalize the design on that, we'll be working with GM2 to have some bus cutouts so that the buses will be able to stop, discharge, or accept passengers while traffic is moving through the intersection and past them. So the bus stops won't be an impediment to traffic. So this is continuing down to Ship Street, and after Ship Street, we widen up to a 4-lane section entering the North Street intersection from the north, and a 5-lane approach, 5 lanes of width approaching from the east. That will be 2 lanes through traffic in each direction and a dedicated left turn lane onto Water Street and North Street. Right now, probably the most significant impediment to the through movement of traffic through this corridor are vehicles that are attempting to make that left turn onto either North Street or Water Street. And so this clears those vehicles out of the traffic lane and allows the free movement of and so we're going to confirm that we can make that work. There are some other elements that we'll discuss later on in the presentation relating to landscape in this area. Here we have the big safety improvement with the full redesign of the rotary into the roundabout. Basically, the entire paved area, more or less, of the new roundabout is going to be able to fit inside of the current green space of the rotary. So it's a much more compact space that vehicles are entering and traversing. It's also, clearly, there's much better direction for the drivers so that they have a clear understanding of where they need to be to get to where they'd like to go. All of those elements really will improve the safety for all users of this roadway. For the pedestrians that we expect to see coming down, the cyclists, as well as the general automotive traffic. One element that I haven't talked a lot about, I've been kind of breezing through this, but the entire water side, so generally the north side of 3A, is going to incorporate a shared use path. So there will be that pedestrian and cyclist amenity that will make it a much more comfortable use for people who want to visit the harbor and don't just want to drive. They want to walk or they want to bike. So it's, you're going to be much more comfortable. It's a much safer environment. It's generally a 10-foot path. And where it is against the right-of-way, there's a 5-foot buffer, 5-foot vegetated buffer to the roadway. So a completely different experience from what you experience now. Coming back up to Martin's Lane at the top of Summer Street, here the cross-section widens again back to the existing 4-lane configuration. And that is what will carry through through to Muzzy's Corner and George Washington Boulevard going out to Hull. So some of the bigger elements that, that the town will need to address, particularly for annual town meeting 2025, are some of these abutter impacts, and many of them are to conservation land or town land, or land that's controlled by the trustees of the bathing beach. And so we will have to have articles or warrants at town meeting to address the taking or giving of easements, basically exchange of property rights between the town and MassDOT. And so continuing on. Judy?
So the next part we thought we'd tell you a little bit about are the several landscape design decisions that we are tasked with making right now. Our landscape firm went into retirement last year, so very quickly we brought on Copley Wolf, and they've done a great job of understanding where we were and bringing us kind of a list of ideas that we need to make some decisions on. Again, most of the landscape decisions are in this core high-intensity area between the bathing beach and just past the Rotary. If you look, well, that slide particularly, this schematic shows you sort of the intensity of the coordination that we see a need for right now. If you start at Iron Horse Park and Whitney Wharf, there are pier wharf projects that we just heard about in the first presentation that this project needs to coordinate with. At 30 Summer Street, property that the town just purchased, again, we need to coordinate the use of that property with the shared use path here. And then all along the way, there is property that is owned by the Conservation Commission, and we need to be sure that they're fully on board with the placement of this shared use path along their property. So this is also the area that we're most excited about because it increases the safety of all users so much and really will be a magnet to bringing people to the harbor. Copley Wolf, if you want to turn to the next one, for example, we have to make a decision about the roundabout, what that is going to look like. They gave us 6 different options. We're leaning to the first 2, which I'll show you, because of 3 priorities. And they are the view of the ocean for motorists, green space along the water for enjoyment, and then low-maintenance plantings. So we're going to try to avoid too much extra work. As JR said, the pavement of that entire new configuration is about the size of the existing green space at the Rotary right now. And this option A gives you that clear sight line. To the right, you can see some of the elements that they're talking about for the surface along the water and for seating areas. Option B is only slightly different.
Well, this is for.
This is the 3D of the roundabout. So you can see what it will look like as you come into the harbor. And to me, what I see most on that is the pedestrian crosswalk. I would hesitate to cross that street right now, the way it is configured, but this will be an experience so that people from the different neighborhoods can link safely to the harbor. So roundabout option B is similar with the sight line, just a different configuration of the plantings and the lawn. You see that kind of pathway through the middle, gives you a sight line and places to sit along the harbor. Again, they also have set us up with a picture of what that would look like for motorists coming into the harbor. So that clear view to the ocean is there. So other design decisions that we have to make with our landscape architect firm involve the Historical Commission. And we've already had some presentations, JR and Deirdre have been with them. Andrea and Jeannie came to our last meeting, as did Joe Fisher, so that was and Tom, so that was very helpful. But the types of elements that we want to get their input on and really recommendations are the intersection paving. So there's an opportunity at North Street to create an arrival to Hingham by changing the pavement in that one section. If you scooch ahead to the next slide.
And I'll say it's important to note that this is this in particular is something that MassDOT has to approve.
Right.
So it would be their responsibility to maintain after the fact, and so they may have their own concerns related to that.
And then the lighting extents, you can see the green shaded areas where Copley Wolf suggests that we consider the type of lighting that we want to put in, either for vehicular traffic or for pedestrians. So there's some decisions about that, which clearly we want to have the Historical Commission direct our selections. You can see in Hingham today, in the bottom two pictures, in front of Tosca, we have one type of lantern kind of fixture, and then over at Whitney Wharf, there's a taller, more recent-looking kind of fixture. So there are a ton of options out there, and that's something that we're really focused on right now. Then along the water, there's some great opportunity for grading kind of the separation between the land and the sea using these granite steps or just a type of seating along the water so that it's a gradual decline instead of a.
The current design for the wharf improvement in the Veterans Park and Mobile area is a revetment, which is basically a sloped stone at about a 2-to-1 slope. So we thought that this would present a nice opportunity to, rather than just have a smooth sloped stone, have a buildable space that almost gives you an amphitheater feel and draws the user right down to the water, at least at high tide.
So the picture all the way to the right was particularly exciting to me, but I'm not sure that our water will ever look that turquoise.
No, that's what you promised, is what it looks like.
I don't think that's going to come in under budget to get that type of water, so.
Another element are all of the recycled granite from various seawalls. You saw in the option A of the roundabout landscape architecture design, there, on the right side of that, as you're looking at the page, there were those linear elements coming through. Those are all supposed to be representative of various granite seawall, basically. So these are different opportunities to incorporate those. In this case, it might be more of a seating element than as just a visual effect. So.
And again, not only Historical Commission, but the Harbor Development Committee has spent a lot of time thinking about this as well, and so coordinating their efforts with ours. Copley Wolf has presented us with different paving options to consider, which you see in a lot of different places in the area. The next slide shows you different planting. Again, our priority has been low maintenance. We're very sensitive to that, although this will represent an increase in work along the harbor to have all of these amenities. Thank you for the word.
I told JR he had to tell Randy.
Yeah, I have not spoken to Randy.
Only kidding.
I'm going to let you, you're the coordination on that. And then interpretive elements, the Harbor Development has already put some nice historic plaques along the waterfront. We see this as a real opportunity to continue that. And that mural along the bottom there is an idea that Copley Wolf had for the wall at North Street. So maybe there's some kind of a historical design or art or, anything.
Paul Healy is really excited about a mural of the sand shark.
Something like that. Anyway, so there's all kinds of possibilities, and we need to get input from the residents of the town and the different government committees that can help us make this a successful look. So our priorities, again, I don't want to hammer this too much, but we really do. We're at this stage where we really need to have everybody rowing the same boat in the same direction. And so our goal is to have as many of these meetings as we possibly can with people. We met recently with the town manager and town planner in Hull, and we'll continue to reach out to them, particularly about this change in lane configuration between Burdette and Ship Street. They were very involved in our initial design of the road diet from the Rotary to Martin's Lane. MassDOT clearly, and we depend on GM2 for our close coordination with them over the years and years of this, and then the various town committees. So did I miss anything?
I'll add, HMLB has been extremely helpful in being directly engaged with the design process for the utility elements to make sure that Hingham is getting the design that we'd like to see, but also that their needs are served and that the project is well served.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I know this is years and years and years of work. Blood, sweat, and tears of many, so thank you. Love the ideas. This is really exciting. Exciting that we're at this 75% mark. And thank you for mentioning all of the people and committees that you need to coordinate with. Certainly Harbor Development, as well as everything listed here. The only other thing, which I'm sure will be a consideration, but just to have it be top of mind, is to think about the ADA study that we've done and make sure that this is as accessible as possible, which I'm sure Art will be coordinating with too. In terms of kind of inviting input from residents, what is the best way for people to provide feedback or get involved in this process?
The website for the web page for the 3A task force has a contact link on it, so send us an email through the town, come to our meetings, they're posted, and we hope in the next month or two, I look at Deirdre because she's our social outreach expert, to have a little bit of a roadshow and invite people to come see the project. And
We'll also be updating the whole website on the Route 3A task force needs a full update, so we're in the process of finalizing that and getting that published as well.
Okay, excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. Bill?
So JR, Judy, thanks for the presentation, and my thanks to the task force. I know that the members of the task force have been with this since it started years ago.
And if I could mention not only
Please do, go
Deirdre,
ahead.
Paul
Yeah.
Healy and Bryce Blair, all five of us. Yeah.
So wonderful.
Oh, and Alan Peralt. That didn't add up to five, did it? Alan Peralt, who also is on the trustees.
Trustees,
Yeah, trustees
yes.
of Bathing
So has been very involved in the
Great.
harbor.
So thank you for staying with it and getting us through here. Spring of '26 really can't come soon enough here. This project looks wonderful, and thrilled to see the 3D pictures and what the projections are. A couple of just quick questions.
The elements is that the sidewalk and a lot of it has to do with pedestrian comfort, right? Especially if you've got a stroller or if you're mobility challenged, and so you're utilizing some type of assistance, you're going to have a wider space on that side. It wasn't wide enough that we could fit the shared use path in, but we did widen up the sidewalk. So that is going to be more accessible. The street elements for the signal are going to be relocated so that they're not directly in pedestrians' way. And so that entire side is going to be much more accessible. Beyond that, it's as simple as we have a clearly defined entrance coming into downtown, and utilization of the signal the way you normally would will assist with that. At the Rotary, that's going to now be the roundabout, and you're going to have RFBs at those crosswalks to alert drivers that people will be crossing. There are pedestrian refuges across each of the entrances to the roundabout so that you can get halfway across. And then you also have the signal at, which can be pedestrian activated at the bathing beach. So you'll have 4 different avenues to get across from the downtown side of 3A to the harbor side of 3A. And generally, if you're coming from anywhere outside of that reach, if you're coming from Crow Point, you're gonna have a lovely walk or bike. You'll be able to feel comfortable that your kids can safely navigate that corridor on a bike without as much concern the way you would have now if they were on the sidewalk.
And speaking of bikes, and the path that Judy highlighted, is that the bike path? So not a bike lane, it's gonna be an actual bike path off the designated highway?
Yes,
Is
that's
that,
correct.
is it gonna be wide enough for walkers, runners, and bikers?
It's 10 feet wide,
Great, okay.
so people make their own space a little bit. And as long as people are reasonably considerate, yes, there's plenty of room.
Great.
We also have a real bike, a road biker on our committee who made sure that the shoulders are wide enough for bikers who just want to get through town on their way somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Excellent.
To get
It
through
won't be a
quickly.
designated bike lane, but a 4-foot shoulder is a very safe space within which a cyclist can maneuver.
And my last question or point is, I know it's a state highway, so we won't be able to control speed, the speed limit. So anything you can do in terms of design to reduce traffic speed and while improving traffic flow would be appreciated. Obviously, this board has been very attentive to traffic safety and trying to slow people down. So looking like the way the design is in its current form is going to do that already, which we appreciate, and anything more you can do would be fantastic. But thank you for the presentation, and just really thrilled for this project. It's going to be great.
Excellent. Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. Sorry, my voice is not all there. It's an incredible job, and the work really shows. I'm just wondering, JR, if you can comment on how this project, which is really the genesis is safety, how it interacts with the resiliency work that's being done at the harbor. I heard you talk about making sure that we have that the cars can see the water, but part of the resiliency project may be increasing barriers so that you really can't see the water. So to what extent is there interaction between what this project's working on and the resiliency effort?
So again, there's a very close coordination between those two projects. One of the elements that, and I didn't highlight it because it's somewhat of a minor element in terms of the roadway design, but it's a significant element in terms of our resiliency planning, is that we added an additional vertical curve within the roadway between Ship Street and North Street, so that we could elevate the road to an elevation of approximately 14 at the center line. And in doing so, as we elevate the boat ramp parking lot through our resiliency efforts, we're going to be able to tie directly into that elevation within the roadway, and it'll provide a passive barrier to flooding of downtown. So that's in the out
Yep.
years.
Yep.
At Town Pier, part of the Town Pier work is going to incorporate the construction of the shared use path and provide the shared use path access over to the Whitney Wharf Bridge. Then once you go over to the far side, We've still got elevation issues that we have to deal with along those revetment areas at the Veterans Park. So the shared use path is going to be located in such a way that it's outside what that revetment or amphitheater is going to be constructed at, but we'll carry people to those areas so that when they're, for the 3,900 days in any decade that we're not experiencing a significant storm, people will be able to utilize that. Continuing on, there aren't significant resiliency issues identified at the 30 Summer property, but at Barnes Wharf, that will require additional elevation, and our current permitting strategy is going to be to elevate that even a little bit more than what we've previously discussed in order to protect the town's rights in the future. In doing so, we may be raising the center line of Summer Street coming out of the Rotary by just a hair. So right now, there's a downward vertical curve coming out of the roundabout and allowing access to the 50 Summer Street property, which is the Hingham Maritime Center. And when we've elevated Barnes Wharf to our design, in order to accommodate that change.
No other questions, thank you.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Did you want to add anything? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for the
Thank
report
you.
and the
Thank you for your
update.
time.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah, thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you to the whole committee. All right, next is to consider approval of the Public Safety Facility Project Change Order Number 10 with Colantonio Incorporated. Paul Healy, Paul Callis, Sean Schmiegel, online, I think I saw. Yes, hello.
Hello?
Oh, we're going to pull out your old nameplate from the back.
It's in deep storage. Yep, please start. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us. Tonight, we're on the agenda is change order number 10, which is a very large change order to pay for various soil issues that are on the property of the public safety facility. Tonight, Paul Healy, member of the Public Safety Facility Building Committee, Sean Schmiegel, the architect from Castle Booz Associates, is here. And what this change order is, and is $536,000 worth of different soil issue corrections. Sean is going to go through the what's included in this, and but to begin, I'd like to have the slide advance here to and this will start Sean's analysis here, and then we'll finish up with what this does to our budget.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll go through it fairly quickly, and obviously stop me if you have any questions, but this has been going on for about 2 or 3 months, as I know the last change order we had last month was related to soils as well, and suitables and unforeseen conditions. But after that meeting, or after that approval, we sat with Colantonio team, reviewed the multiple changes in the project, specifically along the garage footings and excavation, and started to renegotiate or look to negotiate better costs for the project, just because it's such a substantial part of the project. and they're the end of the project. So this upper section that you're looking at here, change order 16 all the way down through change proposal 38. I won't go through each and every single one, but basically each one of these is, as you can see, it's a unit as a lump sum. So through the negotiations of each of these tasks for this unforeseen conditions throughout the remainder of the project, we worked with the OPM team, the contractor team, to provide theoretically at cost numbers, time and material. So again, going through it somewhat quickly, so we had to do some additional test pits to understand different locations of the types of soils in certain locations for whether they'd be suitable or unsuitable. Because of such a deep excavation for the footings of the garage line, the garage footings, unfortunately, we had to remove DMH15, which is a manhole, and a pipe that was already located. And since we had to go down so deep, that would be undermined by the excavation. So that's a small charge for that. There was, over the course of the remainder of the project, there was some ledge removal that we lumped into this change proposal, or change order, because it was unforeseen condition. Covering of a pile, this is some soils that we, during the over excavation and excavation of the footings for the garage along the Fresh Market side, we were able to identify soils that could be salvaged for reuse. So part of that is covering the pile to keep it usable and structurally stable. Garage soil flipping, basically it's a little bit complicated, but there's some soils there that have already been excavated down. We're bringing soils back up that were suitable. We're going to be able to use some of those soils for the retaining wall and other portions of the site along the Fresh Market side. Change order request 22 is the reinstallation of that manhole that we had to remove because of the depths of the excavation and the over excavation. So there's a charge on that. Again, due to the large over excavation of the footing line on the garage side, they had to relocate some salvage materials that were there to another portion of the property for backfill. So that was just the time and material for the site contractor to move it to their portion of the site. So number change order request 20. There's a site plan. Yeah, that one right there. So this is, I know there's a lot on this plan, but everything to the left where you see the kind of the large oval, if you will, or amoeba of red, pink, and everything. So that is what we're talking about for that over excavation. So during design, during preliminary design, preliminary investigation, we had test pits, we had borings on that line that only identified certain locations where there was some unsuitable soils for construction. But once they started to excavate this area, it was noticed that we had to go down in some instances, as you can see, at the upper northwest corner, we had to go down about 17 feet below existing grade. And then up in the lower southwestern corner, corner of 3A and Fresh Market, almost 26 feet in depth, where in our design, we were only going down about 10 feet. So in some instances, we had to over excavate, 10 to 12 feet in certain areas, and then in some areas a little bit deeper. And due to the depth of that excavation, it's what's called over excavation, where you have to fan out and at the same depth to the east and west sides as you are going down. So that's where you have that amoeba-like red colored to the left part of the site there. So with that said, with the on-site representation from the site contractor, the OPM team, we have a third-party construction testing agent on site, as well as our geotechnical engineer was on site when all of this excavation was occurring. So there's a bunch of topography points that were taken from the top of the soil when they started excavating, and then when they excavated all the way down to the bottom of where it became suitable or structural to put the footings, or to bring it back up for suitable soils. So there was many representatives to pinpoint the locations of the types of soils. The depths and the quantities were all identified. So before going back up to the rest of the change order, so the rest of this map really shows everything that has been excavated, has been put in place, and areas that have yet to be excavated. So everything in the green bubbles, so mostly along 3A, those are small portions that have yet to be touched. But those are only for a couple small utility lines. The one to the left would be utility line for the power lines coming in from the new pole from the southwestern corner. And then there's a couple manholes and some drain lines at the at the apron right on 3A. And then there's some small excavation for the sign on the corner of Shipyard Drive and 3A. And then lastly, there's some small excavation just for a couple utility lines up on the northern portion of the site outside the parking garage. So those are areas that are yet to be excavated, but we're fairly certain, just because of the amount of excavation they had to do prior to get these utilities in. They've already exposed everything to date, but they just wanted to, or we wanted to identify areas that have yet to be touched. And then all of the other green dots, if you will, along the eastern portion of the site, the blue rectangle on the eastern portion of the site, that's the infiltration system under the parking lot. We encountered ledge there. So that was our last, I believe that was last select board meeting. So this is everything that we've touched to date. But again, this is the change order that we notified Colantonio, saying, like, this is the last. This should be the last one for everything, just because we've excavated and they've investigated throughout the remainder of the project. So we wanted to come and say, kind of, here it is. This is the last piece before they move forward. And just to note, most of this work has been completed. So in a way, this is somewhat of a reimbursement of work that has been and scope that's been completed. And then the backfill, so change order request number 25, 163,000. So that was the backfill of the 3,500 yards to come back, as well as some of that material that we've salvaged from the excavation. So that's why the value is a little bit less. And then change order request number 29 and 28 is the retaining wall along Fresh Market. So those are, again, time and material costs for that retaining wall to excavate. And without going back to the site plan, if you remembered, that over excavation quantity went all the way to that line. So we pretty much already excavated for that, but it's now they just need to backfill, bring it up to elevation, and then create the footings for that retaining wall, and then backfill it back up. So that's what those costs are for. And then lastly, change proposal number 38. So earlier on in the project, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I think we've discussed it prior, but there was an area of hazardous material that was identified. It was excavated and stockpiled on the property while we were waiting for some EPA numbers from the state, as well as receiving approvals from the yards for disposal. That has yet to occur. We're still waiting on some of that information, but there is an allowance built into this portion of it for about 65 tons. Earlier on in the project, it was about 25 to 30 tons, but without knowing the total volume, just because of we don't get the tonnage until it is exported to the landfill when we get the slips coming back. So that is another piece that's going to be tracked, time and material. Leroy Hill will be on site, managing or documenting the trucks that leave, the manpower, the days, the amount of time it will take to remove this yardage. So the number that we're presenting this evening is of the $531,377.17 is worst case scenario on these changes. They're going to be tracked and documented as they occur, the ones that haven't completed yet. But I also wanted to, if you look at Michelle, if you drag it down to the next section. So if Hill, KBA didn't renegotiate or did not discuss changes or additional changes of quantities and cost, the summation of the change order would have been substantially higher, so $747,750.89. So we just wanted to work with the contractor and document clearly the savings, if you will, of this substantial change order to the town, with all the work that's the back and forth, the negotiation of quantities, negotiation of unit pricing, and considerably, Colantonio has, deducted some values in certain areas where they felt comfortable, and basically being able to kind of open book scenario, do time and materials, we've been able to reduce this change order pretty considerably. Understand it's still quite high. It is unfortunate that we're here now with it, though it is the last 95, 96% of the property has been touched. Unfortunately, it never was identified in the preliminary portions of the design or the investigation or the borings or the test pits. So unfortunately it's being paid at now, whereas it could have been paid at bid time. But we feel the design team as well, don't want to speak directly for the OPM team, but we feel that we've got it to a considerable and a reasonable negotiated amount to move on to get us out of the ground. Well, we are out of the ground, but to get us on to the next steps of the project. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I can get into more and more detail with some of the breakdown, but I feel it's a fairly good summary of the kind of complicated situations that we've encountered. But again, happy to discuss anything further if necessary.
Great, thank you, Sean. Can you just talk a little bit more about the hazardous material? When is that expected to be removed, and how will we be billed for that?
With 30 to 35 cubic yards of material. It leaves the property, goes to the landfill, and when the truck enters the landfill, it drives over a scale, and then when it leaves, it drives over a scale again. So we'll know the quantity that was provided to the landfill. So after those trucks and excavators and coming back and forth, we'll have slips from each truck of the total quantity of tonnage. And then there's then it'll be calculated into, dollars per ton. And then we would have an at cost value for the material that was disposed of. So originally, like as I noted before, it was about 25 to 30 tons was documented in the original change proposal request, but there's still some unknowns of the stockpiles, if you will, just because it's been there for quite a while and it may have collected some moisture because of the rain and whatnot. So it might be a little bit heavier at this point. So Colantonio felt comfortable with the 65 tons allowance, but I expect that to be lower than that. I don't want to say half that, but I would say definitely lower than the 65 tons.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
So the change order number, the 531, that comes out of the contingency spending account, right, correct?
That's correct.
How much, what's the balance there?
Michelle, if you'd kindly, okay, here is the project budget. Scroll down just a little bit to the next yellow line. That line item that's in yellow is our construction contingency, which started out at $1,609,000. Including this change order, the cost, the depletion of that construction contingency is a total of $1,289,000, leaving us only with $320,000 left. So this is definitely a tough hit to the construction contingency, without a doubt. And that is where we stand right now.
And obviously, want to emphasize the fact that this was an old naval yard during World War II that built ships that went out to the Atlantic. So, not surprising that this would come up. So do you anticipate any other needs that might be unanticipated at this point, or we get 320 left? Go quick.
Not a lot. Regarding soils, no. Not very, if that small area that, if we scroll back up to the plan, those areas in green are the areas that haven't been excavated completely. They're, in comparison to the whole rest of the site that has been excavated, it's not a lot that's left. And between the two green areas that are along 3A there, you'll see that it's kind of broken up by another utility line that's already been excavated that didn't have any issues. So they've kind of been in that area where they've done some excavation, and so it's not expected that there's going to be a lot. Heaven help us, because there just isn't, a lot of room left in the contingency, number one. But this is really, we found most every undesirable soil condition that there is on the site, so we got to feel as though we got to have some luck in our next time we put the shovel in for those last green areas. But it's not extensive work that's going on in there. Those areas are not areas where we're supporting a building. We're digging a trench to put in a conduit.
Great.
Any change to the anticipated completion date?
No.
Good.
We're still at the end of February of 2025.
February 25, great. So just my last point is, as I'm sure you're aware, we have a lot of competing capital needs in town, including within the next few years, a new senior center, a new roof for our high school. So the number that town meeting allocated, you got to do everything you can to make that work. And that's very, very important.
It's very much understood.
Great, thank you. That's all I got.
The town administrator made it clear. And that's our thing, is to make sure that we bring it underneath allocation.
At or underneath, would be perfect. Thank you.
So Paul, at this point in the project, do you start looking at where you could reallocate other portions of the budget? Like, do you need to find other contingency funds?
There are couple of small pockets that are in those line items that are unspent currently that, may be utilized for construction. And, some of the finishes and so forth. And so, we're we're fortunate that, our traffic lights might be, that are part of the project, might be taken care of with Chapter 93. So there's some small bits of help on the way here.
Okay.
And Liz, I just want to note that there was $400,000 allocated by you folks for this project from the ARPA funds. That will also augment any shortfall we have.
Right. So on the very bottom left corner of the budget here are the various allocations that have been made for this project. And you'll see that the first 4 of them were town meeting allocations. And then the last one on the bottom is the ERPA fund. And that $400,000 has not been allocated up above the line in the budget as of yet. We've got it noted.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Joe, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a non-financial question. A lot of excavation and issues about soil. Is there anything that you've seen or any of the work that you've done that raises concern about the structural integrity of what's being built?
No, not at all. This is all where that over excavation was done to remove soils that would be unsuitable to support a building. It's been
Right.
replaced with beautiful, dense grade, compacted gravel, sand mix that is going to support that building forever, pretty much forever and ever.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Great, thank you. No other question.
Half a century.
Paul, do you want to add anything?
We did have a couple of pictures on the slides here, just to, if you want to. We didn't bring the drone video, but there are just a couple of photos for construction update. The work that's taking place right now is that structural steel is still being detailed, although that's coming close to the end. Underground plumbing, electrical piping that's underneath the building is being installed. There's backfill of the garage foundation wall taking place. Getting prepared to do, there is forming and pouring of garage walls, but also not this week, but next week, they're preparing to do the first slab pour of a floor of the building. So that's coming up. And the next slide, which has the concrete pour of slab at floor 2, more underground plumbing and electrical, the concrete masonry units, the concrete block, stair towers and elevator shaft are being installed right now. And the drainage and waterproofing on the west side of the garage is coming up. And right now, actually, there's some framing of the parapet walls on the roof, and there are a couple of photographs here. This is showing the installation of the underground electrical conduit and piping that's going to be underneath the basement of the building. There is a welder plying his craft, detailing the steel. That is the framing of the parapet wall on the roof. And here is a look down one of the stairway, one of the stair towers. And that's the update.
Excellent, thank you. Paul Healy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to thank KBA and Hill for their work with Colantonio to get this price down as much as it could. You know, the shipyard was built in 6 months, as you all well know, under dire circumstances. And while the town's permitted the shipyard in the last 20 years, it's our first run at actually building a building there. So while this is unfortunate to encounter, the contractor is working with us, hasn't slowed the project down, working in good faith that we would recognize that this is a cost we simply have to incur. You know, Bob Garrity is an old hand at this stuff, and he's got a very sharp pencil, and he's keeping Hill and KBA on their toes, which I very much appreciate. The board, our group, and I'd like to thank them, if I could just name them by name. I'm going to start with Bruce McAloney because I tend to forget him at the meetings. Sorry, Bruce. Donna Smallwood, Tally Lauder, Andy Touche, Joseph Kelly. We all attend the meetings. We all come to them regularly. We meet steadily. We're monitoring the progress. We went through this particular very difficult issue a couple of weeks ago. We looked at this from all sides as to, you know, is there an alternative to coming before you tonight? We couldn't see one. We gave it a week to chew on just in case, you know, something would come to us. We took the vote. It was unanimous. Hate to do this, but we need to. We're trying real hard to get out of the ground as fast as we can. So we hope you support this.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and thank you to the entire committee for all the efforts. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Or any further discussion? Okay, ready to take a motion.
I make a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign change order number 10 with Colantonio Incorporated for the Public Safety Facility Project for the cost proposals outlined in document G701-2017 dated March 14th, 2024, and an amount not to exceed $531,377.17.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for all your efforts.
See you. Take care.
Thank you.
Project's almost over, Paul. It's fine. It's very close.
Just a few more miles.
We'll get there. Thank
Just a
you.
few.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Chuck.
All right, next on the agenda, to consider approval of assignment of Vista Verde Corporation lease to Ironwood Trio Corporation and documents related thereto for the restaurant at South Shore Country Club. We have Susan Murphy.
I'm just going to give the board a brief update on what's happened since your meeting on February 27th.
Great.
And then I believe that the proposed new tenant is here, and I will yield the floor. So the board did meet, just before I start, Tom, have you heard from the Country Club Management Committee?
I did, and it was voted unanimous to support the assignment.
Okay, so their meeting was, so on February 27th, the Country Club Management Committee, well, the Select Board met, the Country Club Management Committee had met a day or two before and taken similar votes to conditionally approve the assignment of lease subject to 6 conditions. Since that time, the parties, the existing tenant, the proposed tenant, and counsel for the town, myself and town officials, have been working to try to, particularly on the documentation, to fulfill these conditions. So I can go through the conditions very quickly and then just talk about the documents that are in front of the board for review. The way the lease is structured is the Country Club Management Committee, under the general bylaws, has to get the approval of the select board to enter into a lease. So that's why you both both boards have to jointly act and both be on the same page for this to move forward. The first, and so I'll back up before I go through these conditions. There's 4 documents. One is the assignment and assumption of the lease. That's actually just between the existing tenant and the new tenant. The town's not a party to that. There's a landlord consent, so that's a tri-party agreement. In addition, the existing guarantor and the new guarantors are party to that as well. And then there's a 10th amendment to the lease. It would get signed now, but it wouldn't take effect until the new tenant begins under the new term on January 1st, because it only applies to their occupancy. It doesn't apply to the existing tenant. I'll explain that in a minute. And then there's a new guarantee that will replace the existing guarantee. And there are the 3 principles of the new tenant entity, Ironwood Trio Corp. Is the new entity. So I just I'm going to be referencing those documents as we go through the conditions, so that's why I wanted to just mention those first. The first one is that Vista Verde Corp., the existing tenant, exercise its option to renew. That has been rolled into the landlord consent document, which is the tri-party agreement. So that's covered there. Vista Verde and Ironwood have to execute an assignment and assumption of the lease with an effective date of January 1st, 2025. That is one of the documents that I mentioned, and it's Exhibit A to the landlord consent. And that the agreement that was made with respect to Elio Ritchie, who's the main principal of the existing, is that both he and Vista Verde would be fully released from any liability as of January 1st, when the new tenant comes on, and the new tenant and its principals would have to take up all of those responsibilities. So that is also covered in the landlord consent document. The Ironwood, at the time you voted in February, Ironwood had not yet incorporated with the Secretary of State's office, but we are able to go online, and we've confirmed that that's happened. So that's completed. On Ironwood's financing, the town has received information that they have received a commitment for financing. So we know that they've at least been approved, and you can ask Ms. Conte about that. The town wants it to be confirmed that they have suitable financing by the end of July. They have represented that even if they don't get the loan financing, they would still be able to move forward. But I think the town just wants to make sure before it loses the opportunity to pivot that they will financially be able to move forward by the end of July. So that's kind of an open item, and that's one of the conditions remaining under the landlord consent. And the last one is that they get all permits they need to operate. I leave to them to speak to all the different types of permitting they may or may not need, but the liquor license will need to get transferred. Sharon Perfetti has said, and I've spoken to Ms. Conti's attorney, that it makes sense to probably start that process in around October in order to make sure that the license is effective by January 1st and transferred by January 1st so that they could start operating on that date.
Okay.
So other than those conditions that the board had already voted, there's a couple of the things. There's a $9,000 cash security deposit that the Country Club Management Committee carries in their budget, kind of as segregated funds. That is going to be refunded to the existing tenant after his responsibility ends, but there's a condition in the landlord consent that in order for the new tenant to take over on January 1st, they have to have replaced that with $9,000 cash security deposit before January 1st. So that's been added in, so that will get kind of swapped out. And just trying to think, on the 10th Amendment, just to touch on that very briefly, the And I think they have proposed funding source for that. And that they're planning to do start in January, because that's the slowest time for the function rooms. So what was recommended by the Country Club Management Committee, and it's been incorporated in here, is to give the tenant 2 months of abatement of base rent for January and February. If for some reason the project took longer, there would be a day per diem kind of abatement, but according to Kevin Whalen, he expects it to be like 6 weeks, and he is not anticipating that it would even take the full 2 months. So that would be just in a base of the base rent. They would still be operating in the restaurant, so any additional rent, they would still be responsible for.
Okay.
Everything, they have a change in trade name, so it's not going to be Greenside Grill and Raphael's. They're proposing Ironwood Hingham as their operating name. And there's some other provisions that were in the existing lease, such as the Country Club Management Committee reviewing the menu and making sure it's appropriate. And then there's a specific provision. The liquor license that's for that property was a site-specific license obtained by the town through special legislation. The town agreed to assign it to the existing tenant when this lease was signed, when the original lease was signed. It's now going to come to your board as an assignment from the existing tenant to the new tenant, but this provision makes clear that this license is ultimately the town's, and when the lease terminates or expires or terminates, that they have to cooperate with the town with transferring it back to the town or the town's designee.
Okay.
So that it's the town, ultimately, it's the town's license. And then all three of the principals will be signing the new guarantee. It's in the same exact form as the guarantee that the current principal, Elio Ritchie, had given to the town. So that's an overview of the documents. I don't know if you have any questions about those.
Where was the part about the reduction in the,
So in the 10th
lease.
Amendment, which is, I don't know which document, but it was, there's a 10th Amendment of lease agreement. Maybe if you have it just like as a pile, it's probably about 5 pages back from the back.
okay, yeah.
And it's section 2. It should, there's a typo
Oh, I
here. It says
see.
lower, it should say upper. There's
Okay.
Ms. Conti's attorney caught a couple of typos that we're going to fix before these get signed, if the board approves them.
Okay.
But that's the upper function room. And so this is where it talks about, it's a 2 months rent is, base rent is $17,000
Okay,
would be the abatement.
okay. And you said the commitment for financing, was that July 1 or July 31st?
July 31st.
31st, okay.
So they have the commitment, they would just have to confirm that they have all necessary financing, whether it's a loan or other private financing.
Sure, okay. Okay, thank you. I know Joe's the liaison, sick at home unfortunately, but did you want to add anything, Joe?
No, I reviewed the documents, and I'm satisfied Susan has appropriately described them. Is Tina in the room?
They're going to come up here where I'm sitting, Joe, as soon as I'm
Okay.
done.
Yeah, okay, because I think, I mean, we can look at the finances, we can look at the documents, but what makes the restaurant tick is the people who run it. And we have a lot of faith in this group, and I think it's important for the select board to meet them.
Joe's probably going to want to name the restaurant, but we'll get to that. Bill, do you have any questions for
I'm
Susan?
happy to volunteer with the menu review. And, so, no questions.
Okay, you want to come on up? Thank you, Susan.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Tina Conti.
I'm Jessica McGinnis.
Nice to meet you, Liz Klein, Bill Ramsey, and I know you've met Joe Fisher. Well, thank you for being here.
Our pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about your vision for the restaurant.
So we're basically looking to create a great environment for the country club members, the golfers, keep it an elevated level of food, but still comfort food that they're comfortable with, that they want to eat at a price point that they can afford, while still making exciting new food for people who want to come in, who aren't members, and take advantage of the food fair and the atmosphere, and maybe take advantage of the new pool, the simulator room, the bowling alley, and hopefully, we want to be here for a long time. We want to make it our new home, and we plan to go for RFP when that comes up as well. We thought the 5-year lease would be a great opportunity for us to show you what we can do.
Excellent, excellent. Well, the country club, as I'm sure you know, is a real, just wonderful community resource for us, and a place that we can come together and gather. And there's a lot of potential, so exciting, to see what's next. Bill?
And Tina, you're the lead chef
Yes.
there now, right?
Yes.
Excellent, great. And when I was growing up in town, there was a Conti's clothing store in downtown.
Yes.
Is that your family?
It is.
Excellent, wow, awesome. So it's great to see, another small business from the same family emerging in Hingham. So thrilled that you're going to take this over, and can't wait to get you in there and get this going, so.
We're very excited.
Yes.
We've got a wonderful team. Our other partner couldn't be here tonight. She couldn't get out of work on such short notice, but she's very sorry that she couldn't be here. She was looking forward to meeting everyone. But you'll meet her soon enough.
Good. Do you anticipate most of the staff will stay?
Yes.
Good,
Great.
great,
And we'll get some new faces in there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Joe, did you have any questions?
My voice is giving out, so I really can't.
Send you some soup.
Thank you. Yeah, I need some soup from the restaurant.
Excellent.
Mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to note, Tina, you've been serving wonderful food over there for a long time. I've always said that it's a synergistic experience over there, right? The golf club feeds the restaurant feeds the golf club, sometimes literally. But that partnership is what makes both successful. So I'm really glad to hear you point out that, you're remembering the golfers and the golf course. That's the trick to making this work,
Yeah.
is the synergy between Kevin Whalen and now yourself.
Yeah.
And making that partnerships, continue to flourish. So I look
Agreed.
forward to it.
Agreed.
Liz, one other question I did want to talk about.
Sure.
So even before the new group comes in, there will be bookings that are made in the fall for the following winter and spring. I'm wondering if you talk about how that transition is going to happen, so that when you go in, you already have a book of business for functions and things like that.
Yes, Jess can speak on that.
Yes, absolutely. So it is in some of the, I'm not sure which of the documents, but that we are to receive any of the leads for the 2025 year.
Right.
So we're already working on our website and with a software program that I use at Novara and Abbey Park in order to book these leads. And we'll sit down with Elio and Frankie to kind of work out when is the best time to do these showings, where it doesn't interfere with business, and kind of have a working relationship with them. So yeah, we're excited to get our calendar full, or at least on its way there. A good head start for the 2025 year.
Yes, great. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Well, this
I'm happy to be getting in there for 5 years and hopefully make it our home for a while.
excellent, excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Any further discussion? Okay, this is a long
I
one.
make a motion to approve the assignment of the lease between the Town of Hingham and Vista Verde Corporation dated November 12th, 2009, as amended from Vista Verde Corporation, Vista Verde, to Ironwood Trio Corp., Ironwood, in accordance with Article 11 of said lease, in accordance with the business plan submitted by Ironwood and and in the form of landlord consent to lease assignment, an assumption agreement, 10th Amendment to lease, and limited guarantee of lease agreement, subject to execution and delivery of the following to the Select Board office at 210 Central Street, Hingham, Mass., no later than noon on April 1st, 2024. A copy of the assignment and assumption agreement between Vista Verde and Ironwood, the original landlord consent by Vista Verde, Ilio Ricci, Ironwood, Tina Conte, Danielle Barnes, and Jessica McGinnis. The original 10th Amendment by Ironwood, Tina Conte, Danielle Barnes, and Jessica McGinnis, and the original limited guarantee by Tina Conte, Danielle Barnes, and Jessica McGinnis, and to authorize the town administrator to execute the landlord consent and the 10th Amendment on behalf of the Select Board.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Passes unanimously. Well, thank you. Best of luck.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I look forward to the continued partnership. And certainly thank you to Elio Ricci, who has been a wonderful partner for a number of years.
And thank you to Susan. for
And
your-
thank you, Susan. I know this has been a lot of work. Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is to adopt and sign the 2024 annual town meeting warrant. Who's presenting this? Thank you.
Sure. So annually, as we wrap up the warrant, the last task is to get it in final form, present it to the board, have you folks adopt it, and then we start the formal procession from select board down to the clerk's office, and that'll happen on, I think, Thursday. So this is the formal adoption of the warrant, which includes all the articles that you reviewed, that
Right.
AdCom has reviewed, everyone's voted, everything, and this is the summary of it.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Bill?
No questions. Thanks for putting it together.
My Hingham's going to be on the back. Well done, Art.
It is, absolutely right, it was Art's initiative, that's right.
I like that. Joe, do you have any questions or comments about the warrant?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Tom,
Number 34.
right.
That's right.
Did the planning board withdraw the other one?
They did.
They did, okay, got it.
Yep.
All right.
Yes. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Any further discussion?
I make a motion to adopt and sign the 2024 annual town meeting warrant in the form attached hereto.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The warrant has been adopted. It will be in your mailboxes what day? Should we expect it?
2 weeks from Friday, I think, 2 weeks
Okay.
early. It'll be 2 weeks.
We're thinking April 10th.
April 10th, okay. And town meeting is April 24th. All right, very
Wednesday,
good.
April.
It's a Wednesday, April 24th. That is not a typo. It is a Wednesday, April 24th. All right, thank you. Thank you this represents a lot of work by this team as well as all of our boards and committees, so thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda, to consider the appointments to fill vacancies on the 4th of July Parade Committee. For a list of talent bank applications and board and committee vacancies, please visit hingham-ma.gov/SB. Have any appointments?
I make a motion to appoint David Berger and Brian Doherty to the 4th of July Parade Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Excellent. Thank you to those volunteers. Next on the agenda is public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Next, town administrator and select board reports. Art?
Nothing this evening.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Nothing, thank you.
Tom?
I just wanted to, and you just thanked everybody, so I very much appreciate that. I just want to call out special thanks to Sharon Perfetti, whose talents and expertise are what put together this document every year. She's been working tirelessly for a couple of weeks now, chasing down reports and getting articles in the right form, getting them reviewed by the right people and signed off in the right manner. So Sharon is amazing, and we wouldn't be able to do this town meeting every year without her. So thank you.
Yes, thank you to Sharon. Bill?
Our colleague Joe Fisher recently had a milestone birthday, so I wanted to formally wish Joe happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to report?
No. Thank you. I'm still recovering from my birthday.
I just wanted to make sure that we recognize, they had a lovely ceremony over the weekend for Jim and Terry Gordon for being Hingham history makers. So if you missed that ceremony over the weekend at the Historical Society, this is the certificate of recognition that was presented. The Select Board, on behalf of the Town of Hingham, hereby takes this opportunity to congratulate you, Jim and Terry Gordon, on behalf of the Gordon family, for being recognized by the Hingham Historical Society as Hingham History Makers for your work with Gordon Building Movers. Since 1895, Gordon Building Movers have made a unique contribution to saving historic structures and homes in Hingham and the surrounding area. We thank you for your commitment to historic preservation and commend you on being Hingham's oldest family-owned business. We are forever grateful for your service to the community and wish Gordon Building Movers many years of continued success. So thank you and congratulations to the Gordon family. Any other comments? Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We adjourned at 7:42 PM. Thank you.